Recording in
Welcome.
progress.
We are recording. Welcome everyone. I am so delighted to get to be with all of you and to introduce to you the wonderful Nicholas. Is it Adamski? Adamski?
Adamski.
Adamski. It's like a dance, just saying your name. How much
Oh,
fun is
thank
that?
you. That's nice.
And I get to introduce him. We were introduced by a very dear friend that we have in common, Amelia Bartlow, and And as soon as I saw his work, I was just so excited. I was excited by it, I was inspired by it, I was enlivened by it, and it seemed like just right when we were talking back in the day when we were talking. Sorry, I've got to do this for the recording. It's so obnoxious, so that people don't have to just stare at you, Nicholas, when I'm talking in the recording. and um, when we're talking about, okay, like what's going on at this point in our journey. In this point in our journey, we're in this third chakra. We're in the center of our power. We're in the center of our purpose, and we're in the center of our poetry, like the poetry of our soul. It's like that. It lives right there, and we have this opportunity to come and sit with. Gosh, I mean, I'm going to call you. You're more than a poet. You're more than a gardener. I'm going to call you like a sacred designer. This is how I'm beginning to get to know this good man, Nicholas. And I'll read you his bio, and then I'll tell you the truth. So, because bios, they tell part of the truth, right? They tell a few lines of truth. So, Nicholas is the chief creative officer of the Poetry Society of New York, and he co-founded the Poetry Brothel. It's not hot. The New York City Poetry Festival, and the Typewriter Project. Adamski studied creative writing and political science at Butler University. He earned MFA in poetry from the New School, and he authored Inside Me, A Whale is Taking Shape, a handmade poetry chapbook published by Brothel Books in 2009. He's also been featured on Best American Poetry. I'm also going to tell you what I just discovered about him is that he's an absolute freak for plants, and a true animist. And as we sat in preparation for you, we dove into what it is to have the dirt underneath our nails and connection with our own gardens and with our own land, and what it is to settle in to be humble listeners while having fun and wild inklings of what could be waiting for us on the other side. So, without further ado, I will hand this over to Nicholas and enjoy our day.
Hi. Now I just get to stare at myself. How weird is that?
You can put it on gallery view. That's what I usually do.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Leah, and thank you to everyone for coming today to hang out and think about poetry and the way that it impacts and interacts with our lives and also shapes the way that we interact with the world around us. Of course, I did, created all of these documents and all this stuff to look at. And now I'm just looking at this screen and don't know where anything went. But I wanted to start by, well, I actually already started. And Leah and I started a little while ago. So I went out right before I sat down and made this little bouquet for us so that we could have, you know, I mean, obviously that's a lilac. This is a bachelor button. This is wild mustard. And I don't know the name of this plant yet, but I'm sure that I do. I'm also going to light this candle. And I just want to say the name Mnemosyne, who is the mother of the muses. And I think that cultivating a relationship with everything around us, a good friend of mine, Caroline Casey, likes to say that animism is really just having good manners. Because of course everything has an animated spirit in some fashion. Maybe we don't understand them all, but so yeah. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to think about bringing our energy and our consciousness to our third chakra, that place of that place in our body that never stops working, never stops digesting, never stops churning through, both the physical material, that sequestered sunlight that we are constantly putting into our bodies and trying to turn into energy for ourselves. But then also all of the emotional and information and atmospheric things that are coming into us and then being processed by this form that we're currently inhabiting. So I want to invite everybody to just close your eyes and to think about, bringing the energy, the procreative energy from your jing down at the base of your spinal cord, the center of that procreative energy, and then I want you to think about the intellect and the energy and the consciousness that exists in your mind. And then I want you to think about the consciousness and the energy and the feelings that exist in your heart. And then I want you to think about how those three energies, the procreative, the intellect, and the love, come together in your third chakra to start to coalesce around some sort of feeling about what we're here to do and what it is that we want to express and what we're digesting and what energy we're going to create through the heat and the fire that's created in that space. And now we're going to spend maybe a minute taking some deep breaths together. And I want everyone to think about and feel into the space at the bottom of the exhale when your lungs are emptied of air, and you could immediately inhale again, but you don't have to. You can sit in the stillness of that place of being empty for a few moments before you take another inhale. And then when you get to the top of that inhale, I want you to think about that place of fullness and having everything, having all the oxygen that you need. And, you don't have to hold your breath forever, but just sit in that moment for a moment and then release it again and go back into that place of emptiness. And I want you to think of that place of emptiness as a place of not knowing, as a place of a creative genesis, where when we don't know what the next thing we're going to do is, when we don't know what the next line we're going to write is, that is the place where creativity is allowed to enter into the field of what you're doing. So I'm going to stop talking for about 30 or 40 seconds, and we'll just breathe together for a moment. So I'm going to inhale now. And exhale. Two more. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so let's talk about poetry for a second. Does anyone have any immediate thoughts or questions about poetry before I launch into a little thing about how I understand it? No, great. So poetry is also referred to as verse, and it is it's been with humans since essentially we started speaking. It's always been a way to communicate and share incredibly important information. And storytellers or poets or troubadours or bards or whatever you want to call them have been traveling between communities since humans started forming communities to communicate this information. And it was sort of codified and really honed and collected, I mean, by many, many civilizations, but the way that I was taught and as it came to me was through this Greek understanding of poetry as a theatrical tool to communicate what was going on inside of like the inner life of humans. So when the Greeks began doing poetry, it was always a poet or an actor on a stage, and they would say the poems and they would move back and forth across the stage while they were speaking. And each of these, the basic I am, the basic foot of poetry, the word I am means foot. So the basic element of a poem moving across, or the basic element of a poem is the line, but then the line is broken down into feet, and the feet are essentially the actor moving across the stage. So as you're moving across the line of a poem, there's information being conveyed, but there's also motion. And then when you get to the end of the stage or the end of the line, then the poet or the actor would stop and turn and go back the other way. And so it is in that turn, the word verse in Greek means turn. So that's verse, poetry is verse. So in that turn, we are having this opportunity to let the experience of that line settle before we go back into the next line. And so there's lots of debate about formal poetry and forms and free verse and all of this. And the way that I was taught, and the way that it's sort of like locked in and made sense to me is, you know, we're trying to communicate something intellectually, but we're also trying to communicate something emotionally. As I'm writing, I'm trying to feel something, or I am feeling things. I'm trying to communicate, or I am communicating the things that I'm feeling. And without the stop, without the turn, without the time of being not in motion, there is no opportunity for the emotion to come in to what you're doing. So the spaces between the poem are as important, if not more important, than what's actually being written down. And the space after the poem, the moment at the end of the poem, I think it's Li Young Lee who said it, but I'm not sure, but some brilliant poet said, you know, everything that they're writing is all in service of that moment at the end of the poem. And the poets, I know so many poets. I've made it my career to hang out with poets all the time, and that was my dream, and I'm achieving it. And the amount of poets who, the moment they get to the end of their poem, launch into some, like, but anyway, or I don't, or, that was, they just were so, I don't know if it's that we're conditioned or that we're afraid or what it is exactly. But I find that people are so uncomfortable often in those silences. And there's so much to be learned and so much to be gained from just being in that silence. So when we're going to write in a little bit, and when you're writing, I don't want you to get too super stressed out about what you're writing or like leaving enough space for silence or anything like that. I like to create like a block of text and then try to find my way through it, looking for where the heat is, looking for where that third chakra energy, that like where our power is, and then also looking for images and the places where the psyche wants to insert something from our unconscious, or the moment where something that wasn't in us when we started writing, that's coming from some other place, can come in, and then try to find those spots and then try to create space around them so that they can either grow or condense or distill and then have their space. So we're going to do that in a little bit. We've talked about all of those things. Does anyone have any questions? I see some things in the chat. Oh, a digital typewriter app. My computer is sitting on top of my typewriter right now. Like I write with a typewriter or with a pen. I rarely compose poems on computers anymore, although sometimes I have to. So I would like to share some poems with you all, and then I would like to have some of you read these poems, and I'm hoping that you'll read them poorly so that I can teach you how to read them correctly, and then we can all understand what we also as a society have done to poems. It is, you know, poetry in its best, you know, purest form is this incredible distillation of human thought and emotion into like the most encapsulated, really, you know, like crystalline jewel of a structure, and the amount of information and impact that it can deliver in such a short, you know, like you can do in a 15-line poem what takes a novelist, you know, like, you know, I don't know how many words are in a 300-page novel, but you know what I mean, you know, tens of thousands of words. So I have some poems here. I'm not sure. Can I share my screen? No, of course not. I have some poems here that I can drop.
You can if you want. You can absolutely share your screen.
Nice.
Hold the phone. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Disembodied voice from the ether. What? Let's see. Maybe we should just let it be.
If you're having issues, you can also, okay, you got it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the one that I want. I think we're just gonna do this Li Young Lee poem because I already invoked him. Well, not just, but we'll start here. Does anyone want to read this poem, or do you want me to read it poorly? I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Where's my gallery? Who wants to read? Oh yeah, you're gonna do it. Amazing. Okay, I still am having a hard time like seeing everybody, but I see Marianne. Is that it? Yes. All right, don't totally crush it if you can, but if you do crush it, also that would be great. I'm
confused.
I'm gonna smell this lilac while you read the poem.
A cry going out over pastures.
Oh gosh, is that the one that you can see? Oh, I'm doing such. Well, read that one because it's so good.
Okay. A cry going out over pastures. I love you so much that this alive and lonely body, my body is a young hawk sitting on a tree by the Mississippi in early spring before any green has appeared on the earth beneath. Some days walnut hollows in my chest fill with crackling light and shadows. My body loves you with what it extracts from the man over his colony of lizards. And with that, it loves you madly beyond all rules and conventions. Even the 6 holes in the flute move about under the dark man's fingers. And the piercing cry goes out over the overgrown pastures no one sees or visits at dusk except the deer. Out of all enclosures, who has never seen any bed out of his own wild grass? I first met you when I had been alone for 9 days, and now my lonely hawk body longs to be with you, whom it remembers. It knew how close we are. We would always be. There is death, but also this closeness. This joy when the bee rises into the air above his hive to find the sun. No, to become the sun? And the traveler moves through exile and loss, through murkiness and failure to touch the earth again of his own kingdom and kiss the ground. What shall I say of this? I say, praise to the first man who wrote down this joy clearly, for we cannot remain in love with what we cannot name.
I mean, you totally crushed it. In fact, I started clapping and threw away the silence at the end of the poem. You also sort of sped up a little bit at the end, but that's totally okay. Yeah, you really you did an excellent job, and I have almost nothing to say because you did so well, and you obviously get it, which is incredible. I'm just gonna do this last part again because I love it so much, and I want to give us back that silence at the end of the poem that I was talking about. Also, I'm gonna go back to the, oh geez, it's just so good. I love this part about the prudent man hunched over his colony of lizards, because like, what is that? Like what, like where did that come? Like why? Oh my goodness. Some days walnut hollows in my chest fill with crackling light and shadows. There birds drink from water drops. My body loves you with what it extracts from the prudent man hunched over his colony of lizards. And with that, it loves you madly, beyond all rules and conventions. Even the 6 holes in the flute move about under the dark man's fingers, and the piercing cry goes out over the overgrown pastures no one sees or visits at dusk except the deer out of all enclosures, who has never seen any bed but his own of wild grass. When I first met you, I had been alone for 9 days, and now my lonely hawk body longs to be with you, whom it remembers. It knew how close we are. We would always be. There is death, but also this closeness, this joy when the bee rises into the air above his hive to find the sun, no, to become the sun. The traveler moves through exile and loss, through murkiness and failure, to touch the earth again of his own kingdom and kiss the ground. What shall I say of this? I say, praise to the first man who wrote down this joy clearly, for we cannot remain in love with what we cannot name. All right. Thank you, Marianne, is it? Yeah. So it's like, and the thing about you speeding up, also me speeding up, is there's this energy in a poem that moves across the line this way, or maybe this way, I don't know what my camera is doing. But there's the energy that moves across the line, and then it comes off of the end of the line. Emily Dickinson, that poem is by Robert Bly. And Robert Bly is my mentor's mentor, and I had the opportunity to study with him for about 20 years, and I'm so grateful. Emily Dickinson is famous for these dashes at the ends of her lines of her poems, and it's been dealt with in a lot of different ways, but it seems in the original text that they would go up or sort of this way or down. And so my teacher likes to talk about the energy at the end of every line of a poem having sort of like this speedometer kind of vibe at the end of it. And like are you pushing the gas at the end of the line? Are you kind of keeping cruise control at the end of the line? Are you braking at the end of the line? And then, so as the energy moves across the lines and you leave those silences and you have those moments of stillness at the end of each line, you're also creating this, I don't want to say pile, but you know what I mean? You're creating this energetic impact that collects sort of like a snowball as it moves down through the poem. And if a poem is good and carries a lot of emotion and carries a lot of feeling and carries a lot of impact, you want to go faster and you get more excited. I mean, it's supposed to be exciting, which is why when I go to poetry readings in New York City and people seems like they're reading the phone book or like something that they don't care about, or like people are so nervous or so, we've been so conditioned to not be excited about things that we create, I guess, that everyone's immediately apologizing. Oh, I just wrote this on the subway on the way here. It doesn't mean anything to me at all, but I'm going to read it to you for the next 5 minutes. I hope you'll listen, So it's that kind of a thing. When I was in grad school, if a student said that in one of my workshops, our teacher would immediately just say like, well, if you didn't put any effort into this poem and you haven't like crafted it, then maybe you shouldn't share with the class. Everyone's time is valuable. So that kind of nipped that in the bud. And, there is of course a space, if you start to condition your mind and your heart to observe the world as a poet does, then, there's space for a poem to come through fully formed. It's not like you have to put everything through the ringer every single time. But if you're not editing at all, I would say you maybe are not trying hard enough. I do have some friends who just absolutely refuse to edit poems, which I think is maybe misguided. Anyway, so let's see, where are we with all of these notes? 2:30. I do want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to write also. Does anybody have any questions now? Oh my gosh, I see some hands. Let's talk. What's up? Loki?
Loke.
Loke. Can you also tell me what the second word after Loke is?
That's my late husband's name that became part of that's my last name. Yeah. And it's Ke'i Hana Iku Kuakahi Hui He'e Kahana Ele Ke'anaina is the rest of my last name, but that was his name. He didn't have a first, middle, or last name. And it's a Hawaiian name.
Holy moly. What a gift.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
It was given to him, just a short thing, it was given to him by his grandfather when his mother was 3 months pregnant.
Amazing. What does it mean?
There's several meanings of it, but one of the primary meanings is that when there's plenty of chaos, you will be the one that stands up and gets people to move in one direction.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we do have chaos. Okay,
Yes, we do. Okay, so I just wanted to say that my late husband, was a writer, a poetry writer, and I'm actually publishing his works, but his poetry, he would just, live life and all these experiences, and it was always like swimming around in his head. And then he would say, "Where's my pen? Where's my paper?" And then he would sit down for several days and just write. And they were fully formed poems that didn't need to be edited. Mm-hmm. And that's how he did his poetry.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly takes all forms, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And so it was amazing to watch him, because it just would happen. And that's quite a gift, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like being a conduit, just like opening yourself up to the mystery, the wonder, everything that is all animated around us, and then just being a vessel for that expression. I mean, like, to have the ability to use this language to communicate is such a gift. So just to, I think of it as an act of service, you know, and an act of like worship, and to be a devotee of the muse and the beauty that is all around us.
Very true.
It is, yeah, that's like our little moment every day, or, you know, whenever it comes to sit down and just like create the space in our own field for something to come through.
Yes, and I wanted to say thank you for talking about how to speak the stories, because I'm going to be speaking them. That's my plan, and recording them. I wish it was his voice, but we never had anything to record his voice at the time. And it's great to really think about where I want to remember to slow down and allow that space. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It is so important. When we were creating the Poetry Brothel, I was going to these poetry readings in New York City, and it was just like poetry readings anywhere else in the world. It was like a person behind a podium in front of a bunch of chairs, and then maybe there would be like a table over there with a couple bottles of wine at it or something. And after, you know, 15 minutes or something, like I feel full, or I have to pee, or I'm distracted, you know, like it's just, or the room is hot, or the lighting is bad. So the way that we do it, the poets are only allowed to read one poem on stage at a time. And after two poets read, there's some kind of act that's either, it's often burlesque, sometimes it's aerial or tap dance, just something to sort of like bring the energy. You know, we like to say, if we've asked our audience to spend, you know, 10 minutes listening intently to poems being read, that we like to, you know, give them some reason to make a ton of noise, or like hoot or holler, or just like change the energy of the show. It's also a 3-hour long event, so having it, you know, just 3 hours of poetry would be almost impossible to intake, especially for us now. And then if you like any of the poets that you see on stage, you can hire them for essentially the cost of a drink, and they take you into a secret area in the back of the show and give you a private one-on-one experience of their poetry. Wow. For as long as you're willing to keep paying for it, which really makes everyone invested in what's happening. So that's really at the core of what I've been doing for the last 15 years.
That's beautiful.
It's fun. You should all check out a Poetry Brothel. I hope everyone will have the opportunity to go to the Poetry Brothel at some point. Iowa, I think you also had a question.
I did. Thank you for being here. What a treat. And I love what you're speaking to, because it's certainly something that I struggle with. I just recently created a website with a little support, and I put my poems on there. And there's always this, when I put my poem in print, there's always this, how on earth is this going to translate without me reading it, without me being able to put in where the emotion goes and where the pauses go? How would a listener know, unless I am a master at dashes, and I like this image of the gas tank a lot, but that's something that I tend to think about, how I can better support my poems, which are strong, much stronger read aloud.
Yeah. I mean, I think that all poetry is an oral tradition, you know, like that's how we are designed to experience it. We've been listening to poems, you know, really around a campfire, around a fire for who knows, is it, you know, 25,000 years, is it 100,000 years, like whatever. But before things started getting written down, like we evolved to hear poetry. We evolved to hear each other communicating that way. So the page is just, the poem on the page is one step removed from our pure expression. And then the way that I was taught, you know, there's also tons of debate about this. And I spent, you know, 2 years and like, you know, good chunk of change in graduate school, essentially being told that this isn't true, but like that who cares what they say. Poems, it's, you know, a well-crafted poem on the page is not really up for interpretation, in my opinion. Like the way that you carry the energy, if the poet has done their job well, the way that the energy is carried across the line, the way the energy moves down through the poem is there. It's almost, there's like a hidden musical notation in our punctuation, in our line breaks, in putting a caesura in the middle of the line, which is just like a slightly bigger space in the middle, you know, instead of one space bar, it's 3 space or whatever. But there's all these ways that we can fine tune the way that the poem is read once it's on the page. And it's like, you know, mastery. You can't just like immediately know how to do that. But if you do that correctly, and then we also have to rely on, you know, some kind of educated readership to actually respect those breaks and respect that. I would also say to you, on your website, make recordings of yourself reading your poems and add them to the page with the poem, and then people can hear it. And then, you know, we won't have to worry about whether or not, you know, but, you know, that's always the thing with any kind of art. You create it, and then once it's on the page, and then sort of if you put it on the internet or whatever, it becomes published, and then it's finalized, and then you just have to sort of relinquish it to the void, because like you can't control how that's going to make anyone feel, or, you know, and that's just something that we all have to think about as artists, because holy moly, what is scarier than trying to create a true expression of your experience, and then sharing it with other people, and then being that vulnerable. So you know, those are all the things that are constantly.
Thank you for speaking to it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, oh my goodness, thank you for caring. Does anybody else have anything that they want to bring in? Yeah. Fairy Ann.
Yeah, I had a question about what you were just saying. So, I mean, I've always known that poems are supposed to be aloud, right? It's the rhythm and the cadence and the sound is what brings them to life. But the idea that it was part of the oral tradition, so when you tell a story, it's never the same. It's always different based on who's listening. And so I'm wondering, how does that apply? Like, were poets in the oral tradition, like they memorized their poems, or were they like fluid content? Anyway, just what's your take on that?
So I love that you asked this question, because, and I wish I could even remember who told me this. I was recently in Colorado with a bunch of friends at Red Rocks, and I think it was someone there, but I'm not sure. But so yeah, the storyteller tradition. I have a good friend, Martin Shaw, who's a storyteller, and like he says, he doesn't memorize poems, or he doesn't memorize stories. Like he doesn't just like have, you know, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight memorized. He doesn't have Parzival memorized. He doesn't have Tristan and Isolde memorized. It's something that's happening while the storyteller is telling their story. It's like coming in. Gioia Timpanelli is another great storyteller who I got to hang out with a bunch when I was younger. And she would say, she just would get up on stage or get up in front of the people, and then, like, you know, then Dame Ragnell would just like walk in through the back door, you know, and then she'd be like, oh my God, she's here now. And then she would just describe what she saw, the tusks and everything. But we were just, I was just in Colorado, and we were talking about it. And one of my friends said that while that is true with these stories, that there would be poems within the stories, and the poems didn't change. The poems were sort of like codified. The poem, you know, it was like, and there was something about the poem in the story that was different than the rest of the story. And there was something about the information that was contained in the poem that made it the thing that was always the same. Which just, you know, like that blew my mind. I was like, is that true? Like, are really, what are these poems? Like, which poems are you talking about? You know, so that's something
What
that
big eyes you have, what big ears you have, what big that.
Exactly, right? It's the spots where it's always, and that's like the touch point, you know, that always lets you know, oh, okay, it's this. And then there's the thing with like the ghazals and Kabir and Ramin, those guys, and like they would always put their names in their poems so that as they were being spoken by other poets later, it's like the maker's mark is stamped on there. Kabir says this. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about. What else? This is fun. I have a bunch of other poems, but I have these two other poems. One is a Li Young Lee poem, which is the one that I thought we were going to do, but it sort of speaks to that distance between the expression and then the thing you put down on the page. It's like how things stand in for other things. Also, Shiri, is that right? Did you have your hand up? Yeah, now you're muted.
I did not have my hand up, but I'm happy to, did you want me to read a poem or something?
Well, no, you just came right back. You came back in, and when you came back in, you were kind of like, you were gesticulating. But yeah, do you want to read this Li Young Lee poem?
Sure.
Oh, fun. All right, let me see if I can find it. Untitled, nope, that's not it. Oh, is it this one? Yeah, nope, no, I wrote that one. There it is. Wow, things are just popping up. Okay. I just love this poem so much, and I feel like we can't ever hear poems enough. Okay, can you see this poem?
Yes, I can.
I'll scroll through it as you like get down there, okay?
Okay. This room and everything in it. Lie still now while I prepare for my future. Certain hard days ahead, when I'll need what I know so clearly this moment. I am making use of the one thing I learned of all the things my father tried to teach me, the art of memory. I am letting this room and everything in it stand for my ideas about love and its difficulties. I let your love cries, those spacious notes of a moment ago, stand for distance. Your scent, that scent of spice and a wound, I let stand for mystery. Your sunken belly is the daily cup of milk I drank as a boy before morning prayer. The sun on the face of the wall is God, the face I can't see, my soul, and so on. Each thing standing for a separate idea, and those ideas forming the constellation of my greater idea. And one day, when I need to tell myself something intelligent about love, I'll close my eyes and recall this room and everything in it. My body is estrangement. This desire, perfection. Your closed eyes, my extinction. Now I've forgotten my idea. The book on the windowsill, riffled by wind. The even numbered pages are the past, the odd number pages, the future. The sun is God. Your body is milk. Useless, useless. Your cries are song, My body's not me. No good. My idea has evaporated. Your hair is time. Your thighs are song. It had something to do with death. It had something to do with love.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love this poem so much because of the way that you experience it with him. I feel like he really is human and flawed and vulnerable in it. And he takes you on this journey and he's like, I can't even, like, his desire is the most perfect thing. Like everything else is just standing in for something. Like it's all standing in for something else, but he's trying to get something and you know, he's just trying to encapsulate that moment, that feeling in that moment, which is basically, I think, what almost all poetry is trying to do anyway. Like, this is how I feel right now. And I want to encapsulate it for myself. I want to also write it down as an act of processing. And then I also want to maybe share it with someone later. So I think that that poem is just such an excellent example of that. And just Lee Young Lee is so good. I wanted to say, does anybody have any other thoughts about that poem before I just launch into some total other tangent?
Well, can I share about my experience reading the poem?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it was interesting because I felt that as I was progressing with the reading, that my body was like, I even noticed myself kind of like being gravitated towards the screen, like my body wanted to fuse with the words. Mm-hmm. And I especially love narrating poems. I believe this was written by a male, essentially. Reading desire-filled poems written by males and reading them as a woman, because I feel like it like gives me a window into how they view their desire for me. And especially with lines like "your thighs are a song," I'm like, oh yes, my thighs are a song.
Yeah, so are mine.
Yeah. So it was like a very sensual experience, and I just want to like state that from the get-go, from the beginning of the class, I felt like, without knowing your background or anything, from the moment this class started, it's been feeling very sensual for me. And this is like very atypical. So I'm really enjoying this space right now. A lot. Enjoying, in pleasure, a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. I have somehow been blessed with this great appreciation and like deep love of the planet Earth. For all of you astrology lovers out there, I have no Earth in my chart. So according to my astrologer, Caroline Casey, what we lack in that way becomes numinous to us. And numinous means almost godlike. So something like worthy of worship. So for me, the practice of being a poet and the practice of just being like a great appreciator is like my whole mission. And I'm so just like touched that you're feeling that energy. And also, holy moly, like all humans, this like the thought of trying and practicing the art of appreciation through language, and then also sensuality, and to not be afraid or limited in our expression of that, and especially for like sort of male-bodied, raised humans in the United States of America in this time, it's just like the erotic imagination is, if not completely killed, being crushed at all times. Like, why would anyone bother closing their eyes and trying to experience a creative experience of eros inside of their own being when we're being completely bombarded with it at all times, you know? And of course, I'm saying that ironically or sarcastically. Like, on Sunday, I'm going to go into the woods to a place called the Conference of the Great Mother and the New Father, which is a conference started around the work of Robert Bly and, you know, Joya Timpanelli and these storytellers, White Bear, Connie Martin, where people go into the woods and talk and read poems to each other and tell each other stories and sit around fires and play music for 10 days. And that's been going on since 1974. And I've been attending that conference since 2003. And when I arrived there at the age of 21, my work study job was fire tender. And I was the fire tender there for 10 years. And I just got to sit next to the fire and listen to people tell stories and read poems and play music. And I really developed a deep mythological understanding of both myself and my place in the story, and also the concept that we're all constantly all of the characters in the story simultaneously. And it's just sort of like what's popping up for us now. And also I got initiated into a mystery school, which is one of the greatest gifts that a human could be given. So I'm now in the process of creating a mystery school. I know Leah has created a mystery school, and just giving that, I don't know, permission slip to be sensual and to experience sensual and sensuality, and to communicate about it in a safe way is so lacking. And it's just, oh man, we're in trouble. There's this beautiful poem that says, in the end we'll end up sort of like islands of the saved or something. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's 53 minutes into wherever we are. I would like to take some time to write. I think that we should all take about 20 or 25 minutes to write. I don't know if Leo is just popping in to tell me that. And I'm just gonna read this thing that I wrote last night preparing for this class, because I just can't give prompts. Like, I don't want you to write Mad Libs. I don't want to say like, I feel blank, I'm listening to blank, you know? So I'm just gonna be a little bit vulnerable now, because I wrote this thing which I deeply, deeply care about. And then I'd like us to go into some time of writing. So this is sort of my ethos as a poet, and kind of just how I feel about poetry and life. Make choices that lead to poetry. If you don't feel empowered to make these choices in your daily life, ask yourself why. Poetry is everywhere. Poetry is the act of doing something so well, so simply, seemingly effortlessly, but also through a depth of appreciation of each of us doing what we were sent here to do, our purpose. So if we don't feel empowered to do that in our lives, can we do that in our poems? What inspires you? What is true? What is beautiful? Don't tell me what you think it means for a thing to be beautiful. Describe it or name it. How can we remain in love with what we cannot name? Observe the object, the image, enter a place of emptiness, a place of before the creation of the poem. Wait for your first word, your first line. And if you're interested in extra credit, invoke the muse. Invite the creative, generative, procreative energies of the universe into your consciousness, and then get out of the way. Write until you can't write anymore. And when you stop, go back and read what you've written out loud to yourself. Feel the emotional depth of what you've written and consider the emotion you're working to express. Feel into the places in your body where you feel these emotions, where you store them, where you intuit these emotions to live within you, and experience those areas of your body energetically and through your words. Go into your liver and connect to it consciously. Write what you feel like there, all the way through it to what you would like. Write what you feel like there, and write all the way through it to what you would like to feel like there. Right to your stomach, right to your fingertips, right to your lips, right to your heart. Feel into what you would like to feel in your heart. Be that connection. Outside the door, a bird called. I had to go outside to see what I could find. I got to a point with this, and sometimes when you're writing, something will happen, like a bird will sing outside, and you can just put that in the poem. If you can create the space to imagine the world that is being created in what you're writing, your unconscious, your subconscious, your psyche is going to send images. It's going to send the prudent man hunched over his colony of lizards. It's going to send the holes of the flute moving around, and the man's fingers trying to cover them up. So try to be a vessel for that to move through. And I was going to tell us to meditate at the beginning of this and to listen for a line, or listen for a word, or listen for something in that, but I didn't. So we're going to take, I think, 20 minutes right now, and I think everyone should just, let's take 20 minutes. Everyone write something down. Don't think about it too much. Don't think about the fact that I'm going to ask you to read it when we come back. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think that reading things out loud is where the greatest power of poetry lies, both for the person who creates it and the person who's hearing it. And also, just one last thing to the third chakra. If we don't give ourselves the space and the time to process and digest and transmute and work with and work through the things that we're thinking in our brains and the things that we're feeling in our bodies, then we're not going to be able to express ourselves clearly and properly to the world. So I think that writing poetry in particular, but also just, like journal, just like getting it out, is an incredibly important part of all of these processes. So just write for 20 minutes, and then we'll let you know when that time is up. And then it might just be one line of what comes out, and that line might be the thing that turns into the thing that turns into the thing that turns into the thing. So it's now 0 minutes. So please begin. Okay, that's 20 minutes. Please don't let me stop you from doing something beautiful. Continue writing if you'd like to. This little tiny caterpillar just showed up on my counter in front of me. Can you stand it? I mean, how in the world? Mm-hmm. All right. I think some of us are back. Thank you all for spending that time. And I don't know, did anything happen? Oh yeah, something's happened? Does anybody want to just like leap into the void? Don't be scared. There was just a caterpillar on my finger. I think, oh my gosh, does anybody know the song Born a Worm? This is my new mission in life, is to share this song Born a Worm with everybody. I'm not gonna sing it or anything right now. I'm just gonna put a link to it and then you can all listen to it afterwards. It's like 5 lines over and over and it's brilliant. Okay, who wants to start? Is that a raised hand? Essie, Wildcat? Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's like raised hands on the screen and people are also raising their hands. The Zoom is incredible. All right, ask to unmute. Okay, share.
Oh boy, now I got scared. Okay.
Don't be scared, don't be scared.
Okay. There is a quiet that becomes me when the world gets loud. Tangerine cream tea on a tabletop with other accoutrements. This is my piece. There are no sirens today punching through the suburban lull. I think about children killing children, something us inner city folk took for granted, the way things are, the way they were set up to be. Now the world watches and these familiar, now the world lurches and these familiar blues so commonplace, like a misattuned lover who can't read the body. A plane, now a car, a breeze blows through, and I feel the bougie coffee I enjoy making its way down, down. There's a quiet that becomes me when the world gets loud. I search for beauty like a scavenger. The people have seemed to forgotten how to relate and be with each other. The children watch, I watch. The spectacle continues. How to engage with this beast of the living, the great play, the tantrics call it. Oh, Mother Divine, my eyes produce water to cleanse from me these programs of domination and control. There is a quiet that becomes me when the world gets loud. My feet stomp and dance. They tremble with an aliveness. The groove is in my feet. A sleep so sweet. I relish the dreaming.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. Not an amateur. Raise your hand if you're not an amateur. Oh, never mind. I love the repeated lines. Also, I felt like when you said no sirens today, I was like, oh my God, that really like brought me, that was like the moment where I was like, okay, I'm in. What are we talking about? And it's amazing how just like a detail like that just can communicate so much. It's like just in that one line you can hear all the days that are full of that. I feel like we should just keep powering through so that everyone who wants to go can go. Are we comfortable with that? Thank you for sharing. I'm really grateful, and that was really beautiful. Well, that was okay. We're off to a great start. Fairy Ann, your hand went up like immediately, so let's go right to you.
Third chakra poem. In the power of the sun shines into me, into tree, and colors my pea, what glee on a sunny day. Clarity colors the petals of flowers, infusing the air with their powers, reimagining twin towers as vertical gardens and life-affirming activities. Yes, that's real. That's happening. What a dappening, deepening. As mountain spring explodes, kapow, the delicious diversity of living life university, otherwise known as high stakes awareness training. Rattlers and ticks, bountiful sticks, fires will lick, emerging like erect dicks when controlled and harnessed, allow intimate rejuvenations, astral imaginations soaring through atmospheric annexations, burning with care within the lion's lair. Who need hair? The bear, the deer, the woman of fear? Keep it all, comb it out so it falls gracefully down the bare back like a creek winding around cracks and crannies and rocks. And rare ease. The flow, so aglow with chi, ki, gi, energy, molecular intoxications of molecules bumbling along the gravitational ridicules of freedom. Why can't we fly? Perhaps that's what happens when we die. I won't cry to say goodbye, eyes wide open like golden fields of barley to the sun, the one. Oh, how we won to be on this planet, this sweet spot in this solar system, in this galaxy, in this universe, in this multiverse, multidimensional beaker of life. To let go of strife and make love to a wife that you chose for life. The sun is always shining faithfully. So the Aborigines assigned it woman and man is moon. Odd, queer, dear, sneering cacti ready to defend, crackling dried grasses to mend. There's no end. Just a new bend, another friend to send, to tend until the end.
Love that. The musicality, the music is so delicious and fun, and you're really feeling it. There's so much energy there. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. It's so powerful, the quality of our expression when we feel that we're being listened to is such a beautiful part of being incarnated as a human. My friend Eve Bradford talks about the way that it draws, when you're being listened to, it draws something out of you in a different way. Brad, this is fun. Let's keep going. Their hands up, low key. You're all just like lined right up on the top of my screen. Loki, Joy, Elise. We're gonna get to all of you. Loki, go for it.
Endangered witness. The endangered eevi bird alights on the endangered ohia tree. Endangered auku'u, blue heron, hunts the rocky, frozen lava shoreline. I walk this shoreline, finding more plastic pieces than food. Is this what auku'u is eating? the colorful plastic pieces. Are we eating plastic when we eat the fish caught there? Our way of gathering, the when, how, and how much, forgotten. Only take what you need. Numbers of us grow. Numbers of new arrivals grow. Became, take all you can find, forgetting about the rest of us. Foreign ideas pollute our children. Me, mine, I want, I want, I want. Before the big box stores arrived, surf shorts and t-shirts were the way we all dressed, or lava lava or sarong. Now the garb reveals how much more or less the other has than me. Jealousy and hatred for one with more or one with less awakens in what was us. Forgotten, Anawai, the greeting, I greet you as my equal.
Thank you, Loki. Loki? Loki?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And oh man, I'm really grateful to you for expressing the truth, and being in that place emotionally, and sharing that with us. And I could really feel walking down the beach, and yes, we are eating the plastic 100%. It is devastating. Oh man.
Devastating.
Devastating.
Mind-blowing.
I'm almost crying. Oh man, what are we gonna do? I think maybe write poems and read them to each other is hopefully gonna help. Or we'll end up small islands of the saved or whatever. All right. Also, if anybody else wants to weigh in, it doesn't have to be all me all the time. Joy, are you ready?
There is a canyon that belongs only to me. I can go there anytime. I walk up the rocky, sandy path and turn when I see the space between the two standing rocks. Through the shimmering heat, I am at the top of my canyon. The small desert river winds below. The cottonwoods at the edge are filled with life. Down the slope, in the side of the cliff, is my cave, where it is always safe to close my eyes. But I rarely do. It is enough that it is there. Instead, I absorb the heat and the dust, the welcome greeting of the ravens, the hot sun, and the snake that waits under the rock.
Yes. I'm there. I'm in the cave. You really, everybody's so good. Leah, you didn't tell me that it was just like an all-star team of people who get it, who I just talked to for an hour like they didn't know anything. Oh man. It's so evocative, really. I really felt completely transported immediately. There's a canyon. Let's go. All right. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Joy. Elise, are you ready?
This is in 3 parts.
Oh, okay. I love it. It's just like, oh, I wrote a 3-part poem, you know.
Just the way it falls out of my head. 1. Do you waste this one precious life, pounding the earth and all her creatures, big and small, into submission with utter disregard for balance and harmony or love and delight? Or do you practice again and again the surrender to wonder and reverence, the honoring of the fearsome, feral, unfurling, fantastic nature of an infinite, loving, and lavishing divine? 2. The magic was in the candles that lit the way, the brown bags placed along the dirty lane, each with its own illumination of beacon, so that 2 strangers and a driver could make the way with our little Indian car, winding in the dusky light towards our newest home for the night. Like wandering in the wilderness of clouds, the air was heavy with the night-blooming jasmine and illumining humming crickets, as if a welcoming group, ushering us into a world we could not see but knew was there. What enchanted truths would reveal themselves as we drove in further? The sense of burning sandalwood mixed with the heady floral of that jasmine with the salty ocean breeze made us high upon contact, spinning us into the misty, musty minefield of sacred revelations yet revealed but imminently omniscient, wise and wondered-filled. We held our breath, reverent and respectful, waiting for what enchantments would be bestowed on us for showing up in awe. 3. Go, little one, into the depths of your own heart cave, for there truths will be revealed. Go.
Thank you. That is lovely too. Are you kidding me? What's going on? I do want to go into the heart cave, and I feel like I'm in the heart cave with everyone right now. The only thing that I just want to say one thing that's not total praise all the time. In the second section, if you had you could have slowed down a little bit, and there would have been a little bit more sinking in, and I could feel the frenetic energy of the place that you were rushing around you also. So it sort of also works. One piece of advice for anyone ever reading poetry out loud is you can always go more slowly. And you can increase the energy without increasing your volume, you know, and like people when they're reading poems, they always like swallow the ends of the lines, and the energy always drops at the end of the line, and it always kind of goes like this and like this and like this, and it's almost acting notes, but it's like when you really embody what has been written and you really give like a real you really acknowledge the words and say them and like really acknowledge the emotion and what's in there. You can bring so much more power and energy without getting louder. You know, you can intensify it. It's poetry is the way that we don't speak in prose, we speak in poetry. We always have. It's just so you know, like once you start to read poems, once you start to hear poems read out loud, it's really like comes into focus that like that's what poetry is. It's our conversation. It's our like truest form of conversation, and it's just a way to communicate with so many more people at once. Thank you, Elise. Did you take us to India? Were we in India in the middle of that? Also, thanks for writing a poem in 3 sections. That's like advanced stuff.
That's funny. I feel like I won some sort of award because I'm the only one that you've given a critique to. So I appreciate that random uncomfortable award.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, that's the thing, like we're not really in a hurry, so like there's no need to like rush through. And I don't know, it's all everything all the time. So yeah, slow it down. And also thank you for sharing and for joining us. Shiri, are you ready?
I am. I did write this in 2 parts, but I'm going to just concentrate on part B. Part 1 is pretty long. Sensuality. You're familiar, like an air of queendom, passed through my Persian lineage of Vashti. You're a dark-blooded mystery, complex enough for connoisseurs, complex, period. Serve up the chalice to your rightful, deserving king and intoxicate. A contextual abracadabra that interprets spaces through courage this mission body has yet to discover. This Parisian church. A translation of archetypal blood, of subjective semen, of yearning for ineffable fusions that need no explanations, need no introductions. A skin to skin, skin through skin, imprint so rare they cannot write a book about it. A warmth that sedates me like a Schedule I drug, tranquilizes my body, tingles my cells, releases my spirit, the sacred song that sensuality freed.
The sacred song that sensuality freed. Yes. Yes. Thank you for bringing the skin in and the body and just like going for being human and everything about these bodies that we have. And yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Thank you. This is like in my ode to the class today, basically.
All right, we can fight over who gets to put it on their website. All right, Kathleen, Prophet, let's go. Speak to us.
Yes. I begin with a quote by Nicholas. Third chakra, if we don't give ourselves time to digest the things we are thinking in our brains and bodies, then we aren't going to be able to express ourselves clearly and properly to the world. Stress patterns from childhood, money, hunger, barbaric greed for what I want. I want to be a professional storyteller. That is where I will be known like my grandmother before me. Little match girl. She promises to rescue me from this madness, tell the stories of wonder, soul, awe. I never met them, my grandmothers. I cling on to their stories. I felt so supported by Leah. Imagined grandmother heard and felt me through her, felt sin my rage dojo for women, how to express it creatively. Burning Mother Festival. I will tell you stories alongside yours so we can see and hear each other. Patterns from childhood, patterns like the murmurations of swallows moving with the lines of force in the environment and the instinctual igniting that guides all. I awaken with my gut brain inflamed at all the stress that has been moving through my nervous system in pulsation, receiving and transmitting. I'm bowing to the body, my body as the ultimate dominatrix, Cancel this meeting, this appointment. Eat this food, breathe deep, hug and love yourself, myself, this flesh, soft and warm, extended, inflamed belly, telling tales of raging wildfires and raging madmen, of rage that was shamed and went into hiding into soft, warm, hidden places. All the things clamoring to be devoured, clamoring to have a place in me, to be swallowed and devoured, taking giant bites. And now I must take the time to digest and emulsify into blood. The body soul alchemist. This body that reveals the hidden patterns of the ego. And then beneath that, such desires and passions to live the precious life of mine richly and holy, 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 holy wild. So yes, I do suffer from time to time from my nervous system murmurations, my too muchness pigging out.
Holy moly, I don't even know what to say. Thank you. If anybody didn't feel like that was washing over them, I don't, that was glorious. Thank you. Oh, Carrie Todd throws her hand in the air. We got to get through as many people as we can. We're running out of time.
So I want to name that I'm feeling very small in the presence of these great poems. So,
oh my gosh, it's not about that. It's not a competition.
No, I'm not saying that in terms of competition. But I want to name that.
Yeah, cool. You're allowed. This is the safest place of all time.
And I'm feeling embarrassed because I don't know how in a poetry workshop, it never occurred to me that I was writing a poem, but. So interesting how the words scamper away from the blank page. Mm. I can spend a lifetime in thought, but when given the stage, an invitation, an open question, the words become shy and run for dark corners where they can blend into their surroundings, quietly praying to be overlooked, while simultaneously screaming to be heard. The silent scream, sigh. That's such an old story. Sometimes I become weary of my own dramas. I'm leaning out to my edges. What kind of edge is this? The fertile, fascinating ground where mountain meets prairie, ocean meets grassland, or the terrifying existential edge where I lean out over the abyss as far as I can while clinging to that solid ground with the fingertips of one hand. Birds make great sky circles of their freedom. How do they learn it? They fall, and falling, they are given wings. That too is a familiar territory, an old story that I choose to abandon. No, not abandon. I hold a hand out to that young self and accompany her over the log bridge to another side of the river, where the smells are different, the air feels charged. Suddenly, or gradually, I wake up to the excitement of possibility, a flow into a new energetic awareness. Oh, I've become lost with the words. What was that line of Robert Bly? You cannot stay in love with something that you cannot name. I'm sure I just butchered that. But sometimes I feel the limitations of language and become focused on the words and lose the experience. This is a meandering through my musings. And I think of that movie, Becoming John Malkovich, where we wander through the rooms. I digress. So easy to get lost.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So true. So much truth. Leah? Oh, no. Iowa. Last chance for romance, everyone.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, what joy. How delicious. This is, you get to have it all. Look here, there. The weasels say, don't look so far, don't look so near. The weasels say, ah. I drip my both hands cupped into the cool spring water. My lips reach toward them, and an ancient thirst emerges. I bury through bone and rock. A gorge is formed, cut through granite, hollowed out. Inside my belly, where my third chakra should be, maybe. I see a statue of Ganesh next to the mikvah, and I adorn him with the waters, cover him with blue lotus flowers, and leave crystals of amethyst in his hands. Floating there above him in lithia-filled dreams, I see that two halves go separately into one. A bird with bright yellow breast and iridescent blue wings dips his beak into the water before me, and hovers over that hole, drip, drip, drip into my being. A glass of water emerges, a stream, a creek, a river, a waterfall. I get to have it all.
Yes, you do. All do. I mean, you just have to do it. You just have to fall in love with the world every day. Well, I'm freaking out. I'm so grateful to everyone. Leah, thank you so much. I want to hear from you. I know you've got something for us.
I do. It's hard not to read it fast because I want us to also get all to finish, but I'll share a little something and then let's do what we do. There is a river that is calling me. She sips from the song of a soul from some ancient ancestor touching the void, trying to make its way right now into this moment. And it sees me at this door of the threshold. It sees me at a moment that we have all been waiting to walk through. And I know the me who lives here and now knows what I am living for is us and not just me. And perhaps that's why it's so hard. Why indecision is strangling me, scraping at my neck and making everything I know how to call on, the gut, the heart, the voices within, go silent. So I sit in this silence, and the river calls through me, singing through dreams, but getting caught and mangled by the boulders of technology that interrupts this channel of communication. And still, I hear the song, a memory of the melody flashes by before I can catch it, tempting and terrorizing, the forgetting a part of this remembering. But even in the forgetting, even in the interruption of a terrorized society, the river still flows. But it has found another place to love and live, and so I dig my hands deep into the soil and dirty my nails in the fecundity that are meant to be clean for this life, so I might touch another life that is pleading to speak through me.
Amen.
Thank you, Nicholas.
You're welcome.
For opening the space of poetry in such a beautiful, blooming invitation. And what we usually do is we get to end with a bit of anchoring in what we're carrying forth And so if there's something that emerges through anyone here that wants to speak that, if there was a line that was spoken, either by Nicholas in his invitation and his invitation to the realm of poetry, or if there was a line that was spoken by one of your cohorts, or just what's alive in you, if there's something that you want to speak into our collective as we make our way towards our ending, towards the door, then may this be the time.
I just want to say, Nicholas brought many things that I will keep with me. In particular, this about movement and space, and through the description of this movement on stage. So the embodiment that poetry is actually an embodied form. Yeah, really moved me into a whole new relationship. So deep gratitude to that, as well as the reminder for this space at the end. So.
Yeah. I called my mentor. His name is Fran Quinn. He's the one who taught me that about the Greek theater bit. And I just wanted to like remind myself and just, you know, talk it through with him. And he reminded me, and I meant to bring this up at the beginning, but I forgot, that it started there, but it often, it would turn into dance, and that the devotees of the gods would write poems to the gods, and they would sing the poems and dance. And it was all, you know, poetry has been like just like shrunk into this realm of like, you know, like old white men in wingback chairs with books behind them, you know, and it was like devotees of the gods dancing in temples, singing poems in like love and worship, but not worship like you are great and I am small, give me a cookie. You know, it was like worship in the sense of like communion, in the sense of like this relationship between the divine and you know, we're just embodied for a short period of time, but you know, we're not really disconnected from that. So it's just like this channel, you know, and to think of it as something, you know, one of the reasons I fell so in love with Robert Bly is when he reads poems, he moves around, you know, he's not afraid to modulate his voice to become the sun, you know. So thank you.
Oh, cool.
I really appreciate your distinguishing storytelling from poetry reading or poetry telling. I really appreciate that. That was really helpful, besides everything else.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they're buddies, you know.
Yes.
It's all part of it. And a good poet is telling stories through the whole poetry reading, you know, like is weaving it all together. And a great storyteller is bringing in poems and has lyricism in the storytelling, which is like a piece of poetry, you know. So it's all connected. All connected, but it's also, you know, there are poem is a poem. It's a poem.
Thank you.
I deeply appreciate Essie, her line of children killing children. And the reason is because she crafted beauty while including the realities that we're living in. And in that way, she didn't set up an either or, but an and. And that was very beautiful. Thank you, Essie. The beauty wasn't lost because of that inclusion. That was very powerful.
Yeah. It's important to not become disconnected from those parts of the reality too. And Can't stand it.
We have met the threshold of the time that we are in relationship to. And I think one of the pieces that I so appreciate is the resonance in the room. There's so much aliveness and there's so much grounded stillness. It's just, it's great to feel the dichotomy of it. Nicholas, how do we get to celebrate you? How can we share you with our people? Is there something that you're doing that we can support?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on a manuscript. It's probably going to be called The Whale because the last book was Inside Me, a Whale is Taking Shape, and now, holy moly, The Whale is almost ready. Also, the Poetry Brothel. You can find us on Instagram, poetrybrothel.com, at Poetry Brothel. There'll be a Poetry Brothel coming to a city near you in short order, I hope. We're in 27 cities. I'd like to be in 50 by the time I'm 50, so I've got a little bit of time. We're doing poetry camp all over the country now. I'll throw some links in the chat. The next poetry camp is in the Catskill Mountains in upstate New York, August 3rd through the 7th. And those are 4 or 5 day events where we do this, you know, and we have tea ceremony. Eve Bradford teaches with me. We did one in Bayou, which is a special place that everyone should check out if you haven't heard of Bayou. They're doing some really beautiful things there outside of Aspen. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Leah, for bringing me in. Thank you, everyone, for your like unmitigated enthusiasm and for just like letting me steep in like your expressions and your, you know, seeing everyone and just, I'm feeling quite inspired. I don't know, like it's, you know, it's a good class when the teacher's like, yes, oh my gosh, let's do that more. What the heck, man? So I'm just so grateful. This has been really lovely for me, and I want to like put links in, but I don't want to stop looking. I don't want to like stop looking at everyone. Leah, can I just send you an email with like some links, and then you can share it with everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Nicholas Adamski at whatever. It's so nice to meet everyone. I hope I get to meet all of you in person someday. Oh man, what was I so nervous about? This was fun.
Thank you so much, and good luck on all that is coming forth and these big events that you're producing. And
yeah, a lot. Thank you. All right, everybody go outside and make friends with a tree. Or a small plant. It doesn't have to be huge. I'm so grateful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Thank you all for again creating such a beautiful, incredible place of creation. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to re-listen to this one. Oh my God. Love you all. Bye.
Thank you. Ahui ho. Until we meet again.